With the world of AI, do we still need SDRs and BDRs? In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. On this episode, I'm sharing an episode that we recorded for another podcast that we have called Sales 101, the B2B Sales Classroom. Now, this podcast is geared towards students, to college professors who are teaching the next generations of sales students. Now, the content that we talked about, we spoke with a sales expert that I admire. She's been on our podcast, Kristie Jones. And the episode was so good, I felt that you as the audience of sales professionals and sales leaders could benefit from it. And it's about the roles of the SDRs and BDR. My friend BJ Allen and I were diving into this conversation with her, but the concepts she shared geared towards professors. However, it ties directly towards you as a sales leader. How are you doing with the current SDRs and BDRs you have right now? What kind of technology are you equipping them with? And are you really focusing on your customers, or are you focusing more on your needs? And she's going to share some of this, and this will help us to make a determination and help you to make a determination how critical it is for you to have SDRs and BDR, and if they're needed right now. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, know that our focus is all around helping you to be able to not only build pipeline, but to accelerate deals through the pipeline a lot faster. In this episode, we're going to talk directly towards how you can help to build pipeline effectively. Who should be helping you with that? Let's go ahead and dive in. Kristie, welcome to the show.
Donald, good to see you again.
I bragged about BJ, and I bragged about you, and I told BJ all about you before we joined this call. So we're really pumped to be able to dive into this conversation. And full disclosure out there, if you see some tension on this call, is because Kristie's team just beat BYU, and BJ may be upset about that.
Yes, Kristie's a Jayhawks fan, and
good healthy basketball rivalry.
As you guys know, I'm from BYU, and I don't know when we're going to air this episode, but when we recorded it was a few days after BYU lost to Kansas because they cheated. But anyway, I'm just kidding.
Gloves are off.
Beware of the fog. Beware of the fog. The venue is real.
Well, we're pumped to this. Kristie, we bragged about you a little bit. But tell us a little bit more about your role right now. What are some of the stuff that you are passionate about focusing on?
Yeah, I'm still working in the B2B SaaS early stage founder world. So really helping companies go from $1 million to $5 million. So kind of moving from that founder-led selling into building out their first sales teams. So still heavily involved. I think even more important today than ever before is helping them with formalizing all of their processes, because if you bring AI into gut processes or processes that aren't formalized, it's just going to add more chaos. So AI is not going to help improve broken or half-baked processes. So spending a lot of time making sure that we have very distinct step-by-step instructions about the processes that across all of the sales, everything from prospecting to closing the deal to transitioning and handing that off to customer success, let's say. But I think that's more important than ever before. Really, I've been doing this for such a long time in order to be able to bring in that first seller so that the founder can go back to their day job, as I say. But I think now, the playbooks have changed so dramatically. I'm offering prompts. Donald, you and I, before we jumped on here to record, we're talking about vibe coding. I'm working in Claude Cowork. I've always created a discovery call template, but I've just created a discovery call audit AI tool. So you can put your notes in there and it'll tell you what you know and what you don't know and what you missed and give you a list of questions for the next call. So like you said, it's such a very exciting time to be in sales and just in business, but in sales particularly, with all the things that, you and I are whipping up on the weekends, if you will.
It's another world out there, man. And the vibe coding stuff, it's real. I feel like it's like 95 with the internet, where it's enough people have it now that you're starting, right. But we don't know what it could become. So BJ is going to be the next Bezos of the AI world, probably.
Nice. I like it. I knew you win.
In 95, when everyone started getting AOL.
I know. Kristie, BJ, he's steep right now in the world of teaching the next generation of AI, of students, especially utilizing AI, those sales students. one of the things that we see that many colleges, in a way that I did as an adjunct, was we just trained them to be prepared to be the phone callers, the dialers, the hunters, the email, outreach person. But you have a contrarian view to that right now because we're in 1995 and the world is changing, so to speak. Talk to us about where you see the evolution of the BDR role, and give us what you feel is that looks like. And we have a lot of questions in between here.
Sure. I would say I've always been concerned about the kids out of college coming out with, again, there's only, I think, PJ, you can fill me in, but around 100 universities that even have a sales, major or degree that you can get in sales. But I've always been concerned in talking to other professors over the time that we were only teaching kids the hunter role as opposed to also the farmer role, right? So it was always like, what's the entry level role for somebody who wants to get into customer success or implementation and onboarding or sales engineer? So I've always had that concern that we were kind of pigeonholing people that, if you wanted to get into sales, you had to go through the hunter world. I would say if you kind of like to answer your question, Donald, going all the way back to sort of where do I think the sales role is headed? I think the sales role is headed into a more technologically driven role. So, I've been saying for a while, hey, sales engineers, like this may be your Super Bowl, right? And hey, regular B2B SaaS sellers who are used to just bringing in their sales engineer and don't really understand how integrations work or how the system works behind the scenes, you may be left behind. And so I think from the standpoint of the buyer, everything's changing about the seller because everything's changing about the buyer. And as the buyer continues to educate themselves without us, so I've been, again, openly saying, marketing is going to own the first two stages of the sales cycle: qualification, discovery, and maybe even demo, as the buyer demands that companies provide that type of information on their website so that they can, get it down to the final, the final three, if you will. So I think the most important thing for those who are looking to get into a sales profession, whether you're coming out of college or out of high school or you've been doing something else and now's the time, like you are going to have to start playing around with some of these tools, ChatGPT, I was playing with ChatGPT for the longest time, now I'm playing with Claude. Then I started playing with Claude Cowork. I'm taking a course, go to market in AI. I'm spending 90 minutes in class every week and 60 minutes in a cohort after that. And like you said, I was spending so much time the last 6 months that I had to stop reading, right? I was like, I have to stop at some point. I've decided who I think my mentors are going to be and, in the courses that I want to take. But, there's so much out there, but I've been telling people, I'm like, just stop reading and start failing.
Yeah.
Right. So play with Manus, play with GPT, play with Claude. Go do something. And you've been my guess is, Donald, even though we just looked at your successful iteration of your vibe coding, my guess is you probably failed. I tried to build my own applicant tracking system, initially failed, thought it was the coolest thing ever, was so proud, couldn't wait to get for my assistant to show to my assistant. And we put our first resume in it and it broke. Right. So go fail, because I think the faster you do that, the faster you'll understand, how to improve things. But it's a whole different world. And BJ, I'm curious about how you guys have pivoted the curriculum as a result of this. But to me, as I've been talking to people, I'm like, stop just reading about it. And in this class I'm at, everybody, the instructors all have 4 or 5 different things. And I said last week, this was class number 2, I said, I'm no longer going to buy anything, right? Because everybody's going to have FOMO, right? So, Claude Cowork, does what GPT can't. But it's just, if I just be patient, in X number of weeks, it will do what everybody else is doing.
We'll get there. Yeah.
It'll get there, right? So I don't need to have 5 tools in order to, do what I'm doing. I do think, again, Donald, you and I go way back. So the tech stacks have always been a ridiculous number of tools. And now I feel like AI is getting to the place where we were when you had to have a tool for every single thing before certain tools became more and offered you a twofer. So, but BJ, I'm curious about how you guys are pivoting the curriculum as a result of what we're seeing.
Yeah. Let me ask first just a follow-up question, Kristie, to talking about the evolution of kind of the SDR or the BDR role. So do you believe that it's more of a push from buyers to just know more information up front so that we don't need those initial hunters out there that the information that they would normally give, those initial discussions, the buyer should just be able to find online. So am I understanding that right? You're saying this is more of a buyer-driven change?
Yeah, I really do think it is a buyer-driven change. Like they can get more information. They can compare, one company to another in a way that they weren't able to do that before. And that's why I'm saying to companies, like, you need to change the way you present information. Like, as an example, the first thing I told my clients, I attended 6 conferences over the summer in the fall season, like software conferences, startup weeks, all kinds of things. But I came back and said to my clients, like, stop gating things, right? It's going to irritate the buyer. Ungate everything. And to take the example, I called my web designer and said, ungate everything. We're no longer going to gate things, right? We need to be the educator. They want to be educated, and if we don't provide the education on our website, they're going to go find it somewhere else. And you might not like the source they use, and you might not like what that source says about you as a company. So yes, I am saying that this is a buyer-driven, the buyer-driven change based on the fact that the buyer now has AI and information that they only could get. I said, it sounds funny because Donald, you and I have been teaching for so long and coaching for so long, but I was like, I remember walking into companies and they were what I call pimping the demo, right? They were like, they're just pimping the demo. I used to call that. I'm like, stop pimping the demo. Like, like you can't, like you're given the same demo every time. Like everyone wants to feel like a special snowflake. And so so then I was like, you got to do this discovery call, right? Like, so you can do a customized demo, make them feel like a special snowflake. And now I look back and now I'm looking at it going forward saying, wow, like they're not going to put up with, jumping through the hoops that we are making them jump through. They're not going to want to sit on a 30-minute discovery call just to earn the right to get the show and tell. They're done. They're like, in this day and age, I can get all of that through AI, websites, all that information. So, as it relates to the SDR, I'm worried about like, what does the entry-level position now look like if buyers don't want to speak to anybody until they've got their final list of 3, and now they want to talk about IT stuff, right? Like security, integrations, coding, all those kind of things. So, yes, I think the buyer-driven part, but if AI hadn't come along, this wouldn't have changed this dramatically and this quickly.
Yeah. So then what do you think so let's say like you're teaching an entry level college course on professional selling and you're going to teach them the full cycle, right? We'll talk about discovery and asking questions, whether that's spin or challenger or whatever methodology we use. But a heavy part of it's going to be the hunting stuff because that's what they're going to do with their first 3-4 months on the job. So what would be your advice to like a professor like me or like an adjunct like Donald in terms of like what should we be pivoting in terms of what we teach?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to sound crazy, but I've been saying a lot of crazy things recently. I think it's going to go back to inbound, right? And so as opposed to like, we outbound, like I always say, like you got 2 choices. They can pick you or you can pick them. When they pick you, inbound, that is not always ICP. It's not always what you want, which is why we did outbound, right? Because then we got to pick our ICP. We said, we know they're ICP. They fit all the things. They should be a customer, maybe not today, but at some point. And I think like meaning that we are helping them become aware of a problem that they didn't know that they had. And
Yeah.
I still think those problems exist, but I think AI is going to unmask those problems more quickly. Right? You're going to see the problems that you're having as opposed to us saying, hey, does this sound familiar? And they're like, sort of. Yeah, I never really thought about that before. AI is going to uncover the problem and put it right in front of someone's face pretty quickly. And so one of the things that I've been talking to a lot of people about is the art of sales had gone by the wayside and science of sales had been the priority, right? Data, automation, all of this thrown at people. But what we stopped teaching was how to build trust. And now like something like that, a soft skill like that is going to be so much more important because if they get to you 80 some odd percentage of the way and you're one of 3, you have to you got to be on point from the jump, and you have to build trust and with less time than you ever built it before. Negotiation skills have got to be stronger than ever before. Objection handling skills have got to be stronger than ever before. And so to me, if I'm you, I'm going to lean into the art of sales because I think when, like, let's just say hypothetically, we need fewer sellers, right? So companies are not going to need 200, they're going to need 20 or whatever. but it's the people who know how to build the relationship in a very short period of time, how to handle objections on the fly without having to say, like, let me get back to you about that, right? And then I think product knowledge is going to have to be more important than ever before, industry knowledge. So things that I think had been kind of like pushed to the wayside because we were all about like, here's your dashboard and here's all the most important numbers. I think people are going to be shocked when the people who are the sales reps that are going to get to the top 10% are going to be those who have the strongest soft skills.
Interesting. And I like this, and I love the approach that you're going back to with it. I think there's a lot of facts in that, because now I'm thinking from the company standpoint and go back to like, say, Salesforce, Agentforce. If I'm just coming to get information initially, if you push this idea of the non-gated content, I could trust that maybe Kristie is not going to hit me up yet until, so if I use your Agentforce or one of your AI agent at your website, you're a CRM company, and I can use your agent to get information that I need to get right away. And then when I'm ready, I can raise my hand, or maybe somebody could connect with me. But the point is, I don't need the SDR to send me that information. Agentforce or your AI can do that. The other component that I find fascinating too is the fact that, yes, I think there is we're pushing to this world of the consumer side where no one really sells to the consumer like we did in the 90s, where we called their homes. We see text messages, but the majority of it is led to like ads and different platforms, like, where we position ourselves to the prospect. And I think we're seeing more and more of that, where we, as B2B sellers, we just have to be more innovative, because right now, and my screening came on with the latest update of Apple. Like, I have not answered a call in weeks. So like that I don't want to talk to. And then with the email side, Google and Microsoft buffer so much of it for me that I don't necessarily. So I'm pushing these people. What I'm trying to get at is the way that I find that when I first spoke to you about this, I see the evolution, like you're saying, that SDR is no longer just phone calls and emails. It's a lot of LinkedIn, and it's a lot of taking on maybe some of the middle step of that sales process that can maybe handle early disco in preparation for maybe a handoff, or maybe do more in the sales process. So it's the role is more of like a junior AE rather than like just a grunt SDR. So that's where I see that coming in this evolution of the role. If we're going to teach for that, we need to make sure we're teaching them creatively and creative outreach. And I think you guys do some of that right now, BJ, in that sense.
Yeah. Kristie, I love to know kind of your response to what Don was saying. What do you agree with? What do you kind of see maybe changing?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be more intent signal driven, right? And so as they're coming to our website, as they're playing around with their ungated content and, maybe showing up to a webinar, we're going to, again, going back to this art of sales, like, we're going to have to know when to engage.
Yeah.
Like, so you have to read the signals, whether that's in your CRM system or however you're doing it, but you're going to have to read those signals, and then you're going to have to know when to engage, and you're going to have to know how to engage, right? You're going to be making, so I'm thinking like things like strategic thinking skills, critical thinking skills, right? You can't check your brain at the door. And I think a lot of what the SDR role has been is that, right? Here's the formula, here's the framework, here's the script. This worked for Joel, so this should work for you, right? Go get him, Tiger. And I'm like, if you aren't, it's going to get more complicated. You're going to have to see, like, the marketing's going to send you over the lead, right? They're going to be like, they're ready. They're at a lead score of 70. And you're going to go, okay, cool. You're going to have to evaluate all the things that got them to 70, and then figure out, like, how am I going to approach them? What methodology, right? Is it LinkedIn? Is it text messaging? And what are you going to say? Like, again, like Donald, you and I, again, I always go back to how long we've been doing this and how things have changed. Originally be like, hey, I'm just following up on the white paper you downloaded, right? And they didn't ask to be followed up with, right? And so then we taught them to not say that. Like, hey, Donald, like, seems like you might be interested in you're doing some research on fill in the blank, right? But they're going to be so much further past that, right? And so you're just, teaching the next generation to read the tea leaves, know how to approach people, and then that added value. So going back, BJ, to like what you're teaching, like, to me, we're going all the way back to challenger sale, right? We're going to become educators. We have to tell them something. We have to add value and tell them something they didn't learn at their own self, instructed learning right? When they pulled it off the website themselves. And so you're going to have to figure out, like, what do we think they know based on what they've done within our within our website or whatever. What do we think they know, and then what do they don't know yet? And then we need to bring that value forward.
I love that what you said. I think emphasizing to our students the importance of bringing value earlier, right? Because that's going to be the differentiator is they don't want to, a lot of buyers, they don't want to have those kind of traditional initial discussions. It's, hey, I've done the research. It's one of you three. I need you to tell me some of these things I couldn't find on your website. Like, being able to have those discussions early, I think is important. A couple other things you said, critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, maybe things they focus on more as an account executive later down the road, I think is really important. So let me just ask this too. So, cause I assume that you've been kind of training salespeople on some of these things, like what would be some activities or like that a professor could put into their classroom to try and teach some of kind of these early BDRs or SDRs, some of the things you're talking about?
I think it's use cases, right? It's, hey, this individual did this. This is their title. This is the company. This is, but based on what we saw, like they went to a webinar or they downloaded this ebook and or they how many minutes did they spend on our website, pages that they visited, and then how are you going to outreach, right? Because we can't go like. We taught the world that you have to talk to an SDR in order to get to the AE. We taught them that. They were resistant initially. They were not happy. Then they just gave up, right? They gave up the fight and was like, okay, well, I'm not going to get to talk to the AE till I talk to the SDR. They're done with that now, right? And so when an SDR reaches out, it can't be, I'm just calling to set up a meeting with BJ, right? It has to be at a higher level. Like Donald said, it's probably they're further down the pike. So maybe it is a little bit, more of team selling, right? Team selling with the AE. We're getting them started. We're providing some additional value. They probably still want to see the product, but maybe they want to see it as it relates to other products that they have and how, the integration side of things or specific use cases, right? Because I'm thinking if you've got these 3 to 5 minute videos on your website of this feature and that feature, they're going to want to dive deeper into like, I think this part of your platform is going to be the most important, where I'm going to get the most value. Let's dig deep there, not caring about some of the other pieces.
And I agree with that because one of the behaviors that I do is I go to YouTube before I go to a company's website. And I look at the videos they have on YouTube because I'm not getting cookied as I would on their website. And so, but wink, I've shared this a couple of times, but then what this requires the company is to be able to put out good content, and to answer to those use cases. Here's how our CRM benefits a coach, or here's our CRM benefit SMB, or here's our CRM benefit enterprise. But then now I see those, in that 7-minute video, see what they have. And then like, you're right, I need to see that deeper in our environment and how that works with integration. That's when I'm ready for the conversation at that point. So, but I think critical thinking skill, creativity, and those use cases, I think just makes that evolution. I love that, BJ.
Super interesting. I would also say, like, I think one other call out here is better integration between marketing and sales, right? So
Oh my goodness,
we've all been calling for a long time. But yeah, I mean, like I go to people's websites and I talk to buyers that say the same thing, and they're like, it's just a bunch of like useless jargon. If I want to know what a company does, I just go to ChatGPT and I say, hey, like, tell me what this company's good at, what they're not good at, and it'll tell me, right? And then I decide. And so being able to work directly with marketing and say, hey, this is what our buyers are looking for. These are our use cases. Here's what's differentiated. Like, this is the type of content we need. I think is awesome. Yeah. Really good.
This gives me another great idea for something totally off. So this is great to talk about it. But BJ, something you just pointed out there though, is how is chat going to know if the company is great or not? Goes back to full circle to what Kristie talked about at the beginning, the content the company is producing or sharing. And if I can't get access to that content, then you're screwed.
Or it doesn't answer my question.
And I go back to Gary V.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's Gary V's thing before. He said that everyone needs to be their own media company, essentially. And whether it's your blog, the way you write your blog for AI, or the videos or the content you're producing, you want to do that. Majority of my people, when I talk to them on LinkedIn, how to discover our podcast now, the new way is they'll still say Spotify on /Apple, but number 2, ChatGPT. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
so. Kristie, before we wrap up here, thanks for being on the show. Is there any
Thank
other
you.
kind of last things that come to mind that a professor like me should know?
I just think it's less about teaching, sequences and process, and it's more about it's all going to be about personalization and customization, right? If there's so much further down the pike, you're not going to be sending email templates. You're not going to be leaving a generic voicemail. And so how do you take the information you have, which may be limited and it may not be,
Yeah.
and then take a customized, like, what does a customized approach look like in order to get them to agree? I mean, the whole goal is still going to be to talk to them, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole goal is still going to be, I need it. I want to talk to you. I want to share more than you've been able to maybe gather. And so how do you do that in a customized fashion that gets someone's attention and gets them to say yes? But I think, more than anything, I think marketing and sales are going to have to be educators in a way we haven't been before. And you, Donald, you alluded to answer engine optimization, but you didn't come out and say it. But, you didn't come out and say it, but every website's going to, like, I'm telling my clients, like, think of every single question. So like earlier, over the last week, I took 5 pages of objections and how we handle those for a particular client. And I sped it into Claude and said, turn this into an FAQ page.
Yeah.
And then I sent it to marketing. And I sent to marketing and said, you need to answer every single one of these questions on the website, right? Because that's what they're typing in. They're not typing in, not necessarily typing in exactly what you want them to say. They're going to be like, hey, Sally's struggling to close deals. Like, here's her last 3 months worth of activity and whatever. Tell me what I can do to help Sally. And it's going to, like, that's how they're going to ask the question. Not, I need, like, before they would have said, I need sales training.
Yeah.
Now they're going to say, I've got a rep who's been a rock star and now she's struggling. And here's 3 months worth of data and tell me what I need to do.
Dude, world is changing. Kristie, this is why we like having you.
Thank you.
If folks are listening and want to get in touch with you, Kristie, what's the best way for them to do so?
I would love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message and tell me what your one takeaway was from today's podcast. You can also go to KristieKJones.com, but I like hearing from your people.
Awesome. Well, Kristie, thanks for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks so much.
Hey, that was Kristie Jones. And if you haven't checked out our new podcast directed to sales professionals who are, sales professors who are teaching the next generation of salespeople, please check it out and share it with somebody who could benefit from it. It's called the B2B Sales 101 to B2B Sales Classroom. You can find a link in the show notes below. Listen, I want you to also check out my sales prospect tracker. You can find details in the show notes for that as well. It is a tool that I'm using to be able to track my performance. I've been using this for a sales spreadsheet for a minute. And this is how I know my averages, my conversion rates as far as conversations to appointments and appointments to proposals. And this helped me to be able to get the right amount of leads in a hopper. If you want to check it out, go down in the show notes and you can find it. It's my Prospect Pro sales tool, and it's totally free. You can check it out. As always, I want you to thrive and I want you to succeed. If you want to improve your LinkedIn game, you should check out also our LinkedIn prospecting course because I love LinkedIn. I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise your level of thinking. I want you to have the right people on the bus. But most importantly, I want you to go out and do big things. See you on the next one.